Anyway, yeah. So thank you for giving your time to come today. You're also willing to do that. And we've talked about that, kind of people giving their time to do things. So we are going to talk with you. You're going to tell us two things really, aren't you? About how you would talk to someone that you first meet up that is going to come in as a speaker. So that's one thing. We've Courtney and Lacey have already done that. Lacey's spoken to someone you might know, Nick Smith. So there's something that's happened already. Yeah. That bit, how you prepare to do a one-to-one to prepare then for the interview that's going to happen in March. So we've got 36 speakers that are going to come in March, and we have to make sure that each of these people feels confident to interview them, and we'll support them along the way, but that's the plan. Okay, so far away, what's your advice for us? Are you going to start off with just of all, just shove your hand up. Has anyone actually interviewed anyone before? No. So you're usually either, so people are asking you questions, aren't they, rather than you perhaps being the person back asking. Is that right? Hang on, say that again. So you're usually the ones that people are asking questions to, as a, aren't you? So usually asking them questions. Okay. But this time they're taking your role as the interviewer. So it's how to be an interviewer. Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. No, I'm just checking if anyone has had to do it in any sort of capacity at all. So basically, you want to try and find, there's lots of things that you want to do when you have that first chat. You want to put your interviewee at ease so that they know that they can trust you to ask them, decent questions and that you know about them. So I cannot stress enough how much research is really important. However little you do, it will benefit you, even if you haven't got much time. And I find, I mean, in my job as a reporter and then sometimes a presenter, I always try, even if I've just been said, right, get to wherever and find out, and do this story. I always try and find just 2 minutes, have a quick look on the internet, see what I can find, just so that I don't arrive at that situation being ignorant. Now you're going to talk to people having had a bit of time, and you're going to know roughly what they do, what their job is, what they, so you've got time to investigate who they are. And the internet is an absolutely brilliant thing, obviously, for that, because even if most people where they work has a profile, or they might have a profile for professionally, or just their own personal profile. Some things you might find, you think, blimey, didn't know that. But there are these things that you can find out about people that are really, really interesting, that give you a sense of who that person is. And you want to find from them, when you have your first chat, what are the most interesting things that they've got to say. Sometimes, and sometimes you will find that you might do this process and you think, oh, blimey, I'm not sure I'm going to get a good interview out of them. But you'd be amazed at how this little bit of first contact with them will help. And they might have had a think about some of the questions that you ask them. And then when you come to do the actual real interview, they'll be, more prepared. But one of the things I would say is that everybody who you're going to talk to has agreed to do this. So they're on your side. They want you to be able to get a good interview. So they're going to be trying to be as helpful as they can when you're initially talking to them. So what you want to do is research about them and find out about stuff. So I've been for, many interviews myself, and, people often want to find out about me before I go and see them. And one of the things that has always comes up if people have done that is they find out that I was a bus driver. Now you look and you think, in the job I'm in, I might not have been a bus driver, but that always fascinates them. And if you were to find out something like that, when you interview them at the festival that you're going to have, I think you're calling it a festival, aren't you, of all the speakers? That's a really, that will stop people and make them think, oh, blimey, you might be the chairman of the company, but you used to bus drive. Okay, let's find out a bit about that, because it's not the usual, or what people might think is a usual path to get into that job. So if you can just really find out about, what makes them tick, then that's really useful. So it's the same on the interview at the end of the day, and when you're in finding out them. I would start with an easy question. Just find out, you know, what they do in that, what their job is. Always ask them what their job role is, and then what do you do in that job? Because sometimes their job title might not give you too much of a hint about what their actual job is. And then you can go on to a really simple question like, what do you enjoy about your job? How important is what you do, you know? And you just basically have to listen to what they say and then respond back, just like you're having a conversation. So you would, you know, you meet, for example, let's try it with Diego, because I know, Diego, you don't mind me doing this. Hands up, Diego, wherever you are. Hello, hello. So Diego, I've looked at your LinkedIn profile. Very good it is too. I know you've just redone it. And I love the way that you say that you are confident, you're a confident and ambitious teenager, which is great. But the one thing on your profile, which has really made me look, is the fact that you're trilingual. So what languages do you speak, and how come you're in this situation?
I speak Spanish, Italian, and English.
Yes.
Because my dad is Italian, my mum is from Argentina. I lived in Argentina for a while, and now I live here.
And how long did you live in Argentina?
6 years.
6 years. So you had a bit. And what I want to know is how complicated is it to have 3 languages in your head, to know, you know, does it confuse you sometimes as to what to speak?
Not really. Get used to them, maybe.
Yeah. And has it been like that from the beginning since you were little?
Well, I didn't know English when I was little.
Yeah. So when you came to this country, was it easier having 2 languages in your head to actually pick up English in a way? The more languages you know, is it the easier it gets?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. And I think it's sort of an established fact, isn't it, that if you're a child, you pick up these things so much quicker, don't you? But I mean, as somebody who is absolutely rubbish at languages, I'm always so impressed. But also, not only am I impressed, I think it must give you, having that cultural differences, a really interesting family, you know, background.
I guess that's what Polly said.
And
It was only, I mean, I arranged this when you were in the office yesterday. You were there.
Yeah. Well,
so I don't know much more about you than I know that's on your LinkedIn profile. So tell me, who's the feistiest in your family then, if you've got an Argentinian and a Spanish person there?
You from Buenos Aires?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad.
Your dad?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that he, how are they different? Because you can see, you know, they're obviously very different countries to come from.
What was the question, sorry?
Oh, don't worry, don't worry. Anyway, you can see, I'm talking to Diego, and I'm trying to talk to you and find out things about you. And often, sometimes you can go off from a tangent from the job that you do or whatever with your guests, but you can find out a bit more, and you get a sense of who they are. Don't be afraid to explore things and find out, you know, as much as you can about them. When you're asking them questions, try to ask them questions that start with W. Who, what, why, where. Can you think why I might ask those sorts of questions?
Easy to answer.
Say again.
Easy to answer.
I can't, sorry, I can't, it's a bit.
Easy to answer.
They're easy to answer, but they're also questions.
Open-ended questions.
Exactly. Perfect. I mean, this might seem like really basic stuff, but you really want to try and avoid asking questions that will only give you yes or no for an answer, because it just gives you a bit more of a fighting chance that you'll get a better answer. Because if someone says, if you ask them a question, they just say yes, it doesn't lead to much of an, and then you as an interviewer very quickly have to, so, you know, who, what, why, where, how, you know, all these are open-ended so that you can get good answers out of it. And you will find that if you talk to your guests and you know your stuff about them, and you find out as much as you can about what their job is and what they do, you'll find it easier to interview them in the final interview. And I don't know how long you'll be talking to them for, but it'll give you, what you want is enough sense of, so that you won't dry up. Say you've got 3 minutes to interview them, 4 minutes to interview them. You want enough questions that you know that you can ask them. And you will also find that they'll be impressed that you've done your homework, and they'll give you better answers as well. Does anyone have any questions on that, about how you go, you know, around that area of what you talk to? And it, you know, be honest. Is anyone, how many of you feel a little bit nervous about doing it? Nervous, yeah. Was anyone happy to talk to me about why you're nervous about talking to them? Tell me some of your concerns, and I'll see if I can answer them. Get out a word.
Yeah. Sorry. My biggest concern, if I get nervous,
Yeah.
I feel would be, you know, what if I mess up? What if I say the wrong things? Or what if it gets awkward? Basically, that's my biggest.
In this situation, I would be really, really confident to say that they, like, you know, like me, if you, or my, you know, Nick, who you've spoken to, one of you spoken to, who's a photographer, who's my husband, we're all doing it because we all want to help. So we're not going to put you on the spot and make it really difficult. As a reporter, I would expect that, you know, on certain stories, I go and talk to someone, they don't want to tell me what it is that I want to know. So I might get them being really rude back. I mean, we're seeing it all the time when you look at the news and you look at the politicians trying to evade questions, aren't they? And we're constantly trying to. So it's not going to be like that. It's going to be much more pleasant, I would say, for you. But what I would say is try not to be intimidated by the person that you're talking to, because they're on your side. They will be on your side in this situation. But ultimately, when you're doing it perhaps in a job and you're doing it for real, again, don't be intimidated. They're human, right? They go to the loo like you do. Some techniques, I know I've got a couple of friends who say if they feel really intimidated, they just imagine the person in the nude, you know, whatever it may be that makes you think you are human like me.
Oh, can you, are there any tips that you might give in terms of body language and the way that you stand? Because I know, I mean, you've had some really formidable people. You've interviewed Jeremy Paxman, for example, haven't you? And it's like that way that you present yourself so that you might seem more confident than you actually feel. There are kind of ways you can do that, perhaps. I don't know. So
in both, whether if you're you know, facing them when you're doing your one-to-one research, or if you're actually in the interview, there's loads of things that you can do to help you. I always, when I meet someone, smile, even if it's because smiling makes you relax, and it also makes them relax as well, to know that it's not going to be, you know, a terrier dog approach. I can't tell you enough how much smiling relaxes your shoulders physically, and it's just like, okay, it's a starting point. And if we're allowed to, and if you want to, shake their hand, say nice to meet you, thank you very much for doing the interview. It's always a good start, and you've got the first bit of your voice out there, haven't you? And they'll say thank you, I'm delighted to be here. And then always ask them, when you're in this situation, first time you've done it, ask them an easy question. So it could be as simple as, so tell us about yourself. What do you do? Don't try and get tricksy right at the beginning or anything, and don't you know, just try to keep it really, really simple. And if your body language looks right, they'll relax as well. They'll know that you're not trying to trick them or do anything like that. I think just one of the things that really helps me is I don't always use them, but if I've got time, and you will have time, I'd always have some notes, and it might just be like a little postcard size, but just bullet points of what you think you would like to ask them. And then when they're bullet points, they're easy to see. And when they're talking, and if you're thinking, oh my God, my brain's gone blank, I don't know what to ask next, just glance down at the card, look at the bullet point, And then, you know, then you're back on track. You think, well, I can ask them this. So that's a really good thing to have, and nobody minds you having a prompt at all. The other thing I would say, it's not so much about body language, but it's about, don't be afraid to go off. If you've got a list of questions, don't be afraid to go off those list of questions, but listen to what they say. And if they say something that's interesting, and you know, like I might say, you know, and I think, you know, really, I got my confidence in dealing with people because I used to be a bus driver. Well, okay, how did you end up being a bus driver? I'm having done studies in media and communication. So it's quite good to find out, you know, about reasons why people get there. And it's those human things that are much more interesting than the job that they do. It's how they got there, why they do it, why they're so determined. I mean, one of the things that for me that made me get to be in the job I'm in is because I didn't do very well in my studies, in my A levels. I had to face the prospect of retaking some of my A levels, but I had got a place at college before my A level results. So every day during the summer after I got the results, I phoned the college to say, I know I didn't get quite what I needed, but is there a place? And it was like, no. And every day I did that. And then in the week before the college course started, they phoned me up, somebody had dropped out, and they said, look, we know you're so persistent, we'll give you the place. So that's quite an interesting thing to learn, because it shaped me in my career about never giving up, that however sort of dire you think it's going to be, there's always a way forward. And those moments are much more interesting than finding out, you know, the technicalities sometimes of what your job is, because it's about the real person.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I wonder, we are so kind of behind on time. We're really grateful that you've done this. Are there any questions now from the group? Maybe just talk to the person next to you about the things Al said, and think about if there's anything else you want to know while we've got her on screen.
Yeah.
Just have a couple of a minute or so to just talk about what she said, and then we'll see what if you come up with any other questions for her. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that one.
We are.
Okay, anyone got any questions? Anyone got a question they want to ask? I've given you a question. Say go.
John wants to know.
Jeremy Paxton.
I can't. It's so bad the sound. I can't hear. Sorry. I know Jeremy Paxman's there.
Yeah, what was he like?
Well, I was really scared. I actually took a day off work to research him because he'd written a book, and as if you know what he's like, he's notoriously tricky to himself to interviewees. But because I'd done my homework, I was less nervous than I thought. And as soon as I sat down, we were doing it because he brought a book out, so I was sat down at a sort of book thing with him, talking to a guest, or you know, I suppose about 100 people were there, and I just suddenly thought, nah, don't let him intimidate you. And he didn't. At the end, I think because he realized I wasn't going to let him get away with anything, but I also wasn't being really nasty at all. I got the information and a nice interview out of him, I think, because he respected me, because I knew my stuff. And at the end, he signed a book for me, and he said, "No, you know, thank you, good interview." And that meant a lot to me, that he appreciated it.
I feel like he's always on the verge of aneurysm.
Say again.
I feel like he's always on the verge of having an aneurysm.
Yes, I know what you mean. Actually, and actually, he is poorly. He's got I hate to say it, but yeah, I think part of it you can see with him now. He's got Parkinson's,
Yeah.
which is so it's quite hard to see him now. But I wonder if his leaving was also part of being ill. But he's very. I mean, guys, a bulldog, absolute terrier.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Anne, you've got a question?
Have you like ever felt pressure when doing an interview?
How? Oh, it's not your fault. It's just you're further
Have you
away.
ever felt pressured while doing an interview?
Yeah, I mean, to start with, I felt under pressure with Jeremy Paxman, believe me. But yes, I have. Sometimes it's because it needs to be done quickly, because in my world, you sometimes have to get that information
Oh,
out there quickly. So you're putting pressure on somebody who isn't used to being interviewed. So it's yes, I have felt pressure, but I suppose I've done it a long time now, and you get used to it. So, with questions, I said to you, always start with an easy question. If it's your first one, and for many times always start with an easy question, puts them at ease and everything. But if you're confident that your interviewee, someone like Jeremy Paxman, can cope with it, well, start with a really sort of different approach. Maybe come in at something that is quite controversial that might get them go, poof, and then you can kind of bring it down and find in more. I interviewed Ruby Wax a few years ago, and she was quite tricksy as well, because she's do you know Ruby Wax? I don't know whether she's on your she's just was a comedian who's got into very much.
Did she interview those famous people like Donald Trump and stuff? She had a TV show with someone else as well, didn't she?
Yeah, she is. She's been on the telly a lot. She was a really good at interviewing people, but with humour and also very sharp, But to be interviewed herself, she was quite tricksy, really tricksy. But it's so again quite stressful. But it's basically it's making sure that you try and you just take a deep breath, you relax, you smile, and you just try and get a really decent interview out of them if you can. Sometimes people will be under stress themselves. They don't want to. It'll have to be really quick and on the fly. And sometimes people will be like yourselves. If I was to come along and say, "Can I interview you?" you might go, "Oh!" So you just have to try and make sure that people realize you're a friendly face, and that you're not going to ask them anything that's too tricky, and that if it's a problem, they don't have to answer it.
That's absolutely brilliant, Al. Thank you. Thank you so much.
If there's anything that springs to mind, ask me, and I can always email it back to you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. We've got a LinkedIn group, so you can always join that, but I'm not sure if you'll get.
We're getting on LinkedIn. I know I'm rubbish at it. One thing I would say is just try and be interested in that person for the period of time you're with them, because if you appear interested and listen to what they say, you'll get so much better an interview. And if I don't know, if you're all watching each other, your group who are watching will also be more engaged with it too. If you just ask them every head down each question, it can be a bit boring that way, and you might elicit boring answers. If you can, just try and relax into it. Practice it on someone, practice it on your friend, ask them about their day. Just practice that thing of interviewing someone rather than it being you want it to be conversational, like when you guys just then were just talking with each other, sort of like that. You can get there if you ask the right questions. I know you'll be brilliant.
Lovely. All right. Thank you so much.
I've written a bit down, so I'll send it to Polly if that helps.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Thank you so
Good
much
luck.
for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Take care. Bye.